All right, ladies and gentlemen, we spent some time on Friday working on rounding, and we only focused on rounding to the nearest thousand. So we're getting a little more complicated now. This time we're going to work on rounding multi-digit numbers to the 10,000s place and the 100,000s place. Like we said before, you have to first figure out what you're rounding to. And you'll see I wrote here round to the nearest 10,000. If you round to the nearest 10,000, you need to look and see how many 10,000s you have. So we know this is the ones, tens, hundreds, thousands, 10,000s place. Now the funny thing is there is nothing past it, so this is relatively easy. I only have 7 10,000s. And if I have 7 10,000s, that's the same as saying 70,000, which we know will be our base for our vertical number line. So we always ask ourselves, what is one more of whatever we're rounding to? Since we're rounding to 10,000s, it would be what is one more 10,000? So 70,000 plus one more 10,000 would be 80,000. I had 7 10,000s, now I have 8 10,000s. Then I take my midpoint and I ask myself, what falls between 7 10,000s and 8 10,000s? Well, it'd be 7.5. Or between 70 and 80 would be 75. And since I'm dealing with 10,000s, it's 75 thousands. I have 7 10,000s with 5 being my midpoint. Remember that, very important midpoint. So the next question I ask myself is, where does 72,744 fall? Well, I know my 7 is the same till I get to my top 10,000. So I look at my thousands place. I have a 2. Here I have a 5. Here I have a 0. Obviously, to some of us, that 2 would fall between 0 and 5. I'm sure that's to most of us. We make our mark and we plot our 72,744. We're not quite done yet because we have to figure out about what 72,744 rounds to. We either round down to 70,000 or up to 80,000. Just by looking at your arrows, you can see it's less distance to 70,000, but also 72,744 falls under the midpoint, which means we round down. Therefore, 72,744 is about 70,000. All right, let's go to our next one. Let's imagine that we're making this a hair harder. We have another vertical number line. So go ahead and pause while you make this vertical number line. All right, so now that you have your vertical line, we're again having to figure out what are we rounding to. So I said round to the nearest 10,000. This time it's a little bit different. We have ones, tens, hundreds, thousands, 10,000s, 100,000s. So yes, even though that's our 10,000s place, and we only have 3 in the 10,000s place, we really have 33 10,000s. So that's going to be my base number, 33 10,000s. The rest will be zeros because this is the 10,000s place, 33 10,000s, and the rest are zeros because we're dealing with the base 10. So I have 33 10,000s. What's one more? 34 10,000s. And the reason we put this 0 here is because I said 34 10,000s, and that is the 10,000s place. Then I have to figure out what my midpoint is. Remembering that we're looking at our thousands here, or our 10,000s rather, sorry. We have 33 10,000s, so we always keep that. And then we know that that midpoint would be 5. And the rest are 0. If you need to count your digits to make sure you have the right number of digits, if this has 6, then it's a very good chance that this will have 6 or more, and that this will have 6 or more. You would never have 6 here and then go down to 5 digits here. It just doesn't work like that. All right, the next thing you have to look at is I have 337,601. Where am I going to put it? Well, if I have 33 10,000s, 33 10,000s, 34 10,000s, obviously I know it's on here somewhere. But in my thousands place, I have a 7. 0, 5. Does 7,000s fall between 0 and 5,000s? I hope your answer was no. It will be above. Therefore, we place our disc and put 337,601. So now our next step is, does it round down or up? Since it's past the midpoint, it rounds up. So it would be about 340,000 when rounded to the nearest 10,000. All right, let's go ahead and try one more. This time, I would like you to pause after or make your vertical line and write 749,085. Go ahead and pause. All right, what we're going to look at now is that you have a vertical line or round to the nearest 100,000. So we have to find what we have in our 100,000s. Ones, tens, hundreds, thousands, 10,000s, 100,000s. How many 100,000s do I have? I have 700,000s. 700,000. My brain did all the work for me. I have 700,000s. One more 100,000 would be 800,000s. Then you need to go ahead and look at your midpoint. We know we keep our base, our 700,000s, but then the next number that falls in between these two, directly in the middle, would be a 5. That's 0, and it's almost like it went to 10. 5, 0, because I have 3 digits here, comma, 3 more digits. 1, 2, 3. See if you can figure out where 749,085 would round to. Pause while you think about it. All right, what you should have come up with is that I have a 7 in the 100,000s place, so it obviously belongs on this chart. I have a 4 in the 10,000s place. 0 10,000s, 5 10,000s. Does 4 fall between them? Well, yes it does. 749,085. So does it round down or does it round up? Remember, never to the midpoint. Since it's under the midpoint, we know that it automatically rounds down. And as Emma said, 5 and above, give it a shove. Well, this is below 5, so we do not shove it up. Therefore, 749,085 is about 700,000. All right, we're going to do one last thing. This time, we are estimating. I'd like you to go ahead and write this out on your board. Pause while you do so. Imagine I wanted to estimate what the sum was of these two numbers without actually adding them together. I know you can add it together, but without actually doing it. See, I wanted to round them, so I want to estimate my answer. I would use 2 vertical number lines, one for each number. And I would figure out what each of them equaled as far as rounding went. When you round to the largest place, you're going to have a much bigger difference, usually, of what it would actually be. If you round to the ones place, well, that's really easy because you're just adding those two up. So we can round to the 100,000s because we're just practicing our rounding, but you could also round to the 10,000s to make it more accurate, the thousands to make it even more accurate, hundreds even more accurate, 10s even more accurate, and 1s, that's the most accurate because you're just adding those up. So go ahead and take your time to figure out what 505,341 rounds to and what 193,841 rounds to the nearest 100,000. Go ahead and pause while you do that. In case you're getting stuck, here's just a little bit of help. I took my 505,341 and I said, how many 100,000s do I have? I have 500,000s, that's my base number. One more would be 600,000. Then I take my base of 500,000, and what's the halfway? 5. And then I have 6 digits, 6 digits. 550,000 falls between these 2 points. I plotted 505,000, and you probably saw this before. It is much closer to 500,000. All right, if you've done the other one, just go ahead and wait for me to do it with you. Otherwise, pause and work on the next one. I did the same thing with my 193,841. I found my nearest 100,000, which was 1, so I had 100,000. 100,000 more would be 200,000. Those are my 2 endpoints. The mid would be 150,000 because that falls directly between 100,000 and 200,000. Then I plotted 193,841, which is more than the midpoint. Therefore, it rounds up to 200,000. If I add those two together, 500,000 plus 200,000 gives me 700,000. So if I were to estimate what this equaled, I would say it's about 700,000. And that's how you do it. Good luck.